When a car is built at a very conservative price point, would it still be capable of steering your emotions? Or will an affordable car serve as a constant reminder that you settled for less? Well, maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Economy cars exist in order to cater to more and more people. And to keep costs down, budget cars keep getting smaller and smaller and often have to forego a lot of features. But the thing is, buyers will always be critical or discerning regardless of which price bracket a car falls under. So where do manufacturers draw the line? Well, let's find out by taking a closer look at the Kia Soluto 1.4 EX. It's granted, you really can't expect much from a car that's built on a budget, but that should never be an excuse to compromise the way a car looks. And as far as I'm concerned, a car will never feel cheap in the absence of exterior kit. Simplicity is never a bad thing, and besides, good design really doesn't have to be expensive. In fact, a car only looks cheap when fit and finish is poor or when it starts to become tacky. So when does a car become tacky? In my book, a car only looks tacky when it uses stuff like fake air vents, fake exhausts, or simply when it's overstyled to look like something it's not. And I'm happy to report that with the Kia Soluto, it doesn't do any of that. What we have here is a simple yet good-looking machine. From the tiger nose grille that really isn't a grille to the halogen headlights and unconventionally placed fog lights, everything is simple yet fluidic. The simplicity continues along the side with these body lines that aren't exaggerated, yet they give the car some character. You don't even get a quarter glass window, yet the window goes pretty far down. Now, I don't usually point out the door handles, but like I did in the Kia Picanto video, I'm going to point these out because other cars in this class comes with those very cheap looking plastic things. You also get repeaters on the side mirrors, which is a nice touch, especially for this class. Now, the Soluto rolls on 14-inch wheels, which look smaller than they actually are because this part of the rim is pretty thick. Some say that the rear end of the Soluto looks rather bland or boring, but I personally think it looks clean. And besides, I take bland or boring over corny any day. But this does have a feature that no other car has, and that's a time machine that takes you back to the 90s where you had to use one of these to open the trunk. Opening the trunk reveals 475 liters of cargo space. Now, the seats don't fold down, but this is more than enough room. Even has more room than some cars above its weight class. Now, let's go check out the rest of the interior. Stepping into the Soluto, you're greeted with a sea of hard plastic. Even the sidings are plastic, and there's some fake stitching. Okay, yes, that part is tacky. But it's forgivable at this price point. The design is very straightforward and everything is logically placed, so operating this is a no-brainer, and everything is well within reach and extremely intuitive, as there are physical knobs and buttons for almost everything. Even the power window switches are over here, and that will take some getting used to. But that isn't exactly odd because a lot of European cars from the 90s had the power window switches in the center console. The materials do lean more towards the durable side, but at least you get this leather steering wheel, which is a really nice touch. The seats are also wrapped in leatherette. Seats are actually fairly soft. They provide pretty good support, although it is a bit lacking in terms of under thigh support. However, there is this height adjuster that will come in handy for those who need it. Now, a lot of cars at this price point don't get a center armrest, but this one does, and it's actually connected to the seat. So this makes driving a lot more comfortable. Now, going back to the steering wheel, I really like the design, and I also love the fact that it has audio controls right over here. You can also adjust this for tilt, however, it does not telescope. The instrument cluster is mostly analog, which I really don't mind, but you also get a TFT display in the middle, which displays your temp, fuel range, and mileage. Now, the infotainment system is a 7-inch touchscreen, which isn't the biggest thing out there, but it does come standard with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and it even gets a reverse camera. So this is actually pretty well equipped for its class. Now, the rear seats are comfortable, but squeezing 3 adults there would be quite the feat. However, you do get adequate head and leg room, and I like the fact that you don't sit too upright. As expected, there aren't much toys back there, if any. You don't get air vents, charge ports, you don't even get seat pockets or a center armrest with cup holders. So I think what Kia has done here is they've managed to strip down the interior without penalizing the occupants in terms of comfort or amenities, because you're really covered with everything you could possibly need here. But let's see what this thing is like to drive. Under the hood of the Kia Soluto lies a 1.4-liter four-cylinder engine that produces 93 horsepower and 132 newton meters of torque. Now, this is the same engine that you'd find in the much heavier Kia Rio, Kia Stonic, and even the Hyundai Accent. But even when you compare the power output figures to other cars in its class, other subcompact cars such as the Toyota Vios, you'll find that the power output numbers are pretty decent. But when you take power to weight ratio into consideration, numbers are even better. So what does that translate to as far as power delivery is concerned? Well, peak torque and peak horsepower comes in high up on the rev range. Peak horsepower around 6,000 RPM, while peak torque comes in around 4,000 RPM. So if you drive this thing lightly, it isn't going to feel that fast. But when you rev it out to get the most out of it, you'll find that it's actually quite peppy. Now, this is made into a 4-speed automatic transmission, and some will say that that's an ancient transmission, but personally I really don't mind, because at least it's not a CVT. And besides, the transmission is quick to downshift when you need it. It does take a split second, but it does downshift as needed, and it shifts rather smoothly. Now, you don't pay a penalty as far as fuel efficiency is concerned, because in city driving you can still get around 10 to 12 kilometers per liter. And when you take this out on the highway, even if it just has 4 gears, you can still get 20 kilometers per liter. Now that's pretty good. Now when it comes to steering, the steering feel is extremely light, and on-center feel is pretty vague. But I'd attribute that to the skinny tires that this rolls on. But in any case, the steering ratio is pretty good, and the fact that it's light makes this a breeze to drive. Now, as far as handling is concerned, the Soluto can take turns at speed with confidence. There's hardly any body roll. However, the suspension leans more towards the stiff side. But the ride isn't exactly jarring, it just isn't the smoothest thing in the planet. In any case, all the occupants of the car will feel comfortable. Now, in terms of braking, the brakes do a pretty decent job in getting the car to stop. However, the brake feel is instantaneous. There's that instant bite. So that will take some getting used to. It's very sensitive. Now, visibility is okay. The dash sits pretty low, so forward visibility is all right. However, one thing I want to point out is the fact that even if I have the seats set on the lowest setting, this tends to block my line of vision. So I tend to lean a bit to make sure that the road is clear sometimes, especially when turning or approaching an intersection. Because in the Philippines, you never know what's there, right? So the biggest highlight behind the wheel of the Soluto is just how easy it is to drive. Visibility is good, steering is light, the seats are comfortable. So this is definitely something you can drive on a daily basis and it'll never feel exhausting. But will it steer your emotions? Well, it's no pocket rocket, but the fact that peak power comes in on the top of the rev range means that you can do some spirited driving and you will get the sensation of speed. So in that regard, yeah, it'll definitely steer your emotions. It puts a smile on my face. The Kia Soluto 1.4EX can be yours for only 755,000 pesos, and that places this competitively against other cars in its class. And in terms of crossing that line of taking too much away from a car just to make it affordable, the Soluto shows that Kia knows exactly where to draw that line.